Good afternoon. My name is Beresford Edwards. I am co-chair of the BAME Staff Network at the University of Manchester, and I'm also one of the organizers of this event, which plans to be an exciting one, a conversation with Lemn Sissay. Now, before I put you over to our host for today, I just wanted to bring to your attention just two short notes of housekeeping. Firstly, that this event will be recorded and it will be made available afterwards for public viewing. And secondly, that this is a space of mutual respect, and so we would like you to respect that. Thank you very much. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce you to today's host, who is none other than Nana Agyeman. Thank you.
Thank you, Beresford. And good afternoon to everyone. Hello. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the 5th Pan African Congress, which was held here in Manchester in 1945. Now, 75 years ago, as you know, a group of African leaders came together here in Manchester, and they had one single vision, and that was the liberation of hundreds of millions of Africans who were living under colonial rule. Now, through the sweat and toil of our forefathers and mothers, I should say, they did gain independence and they overcame colonialism. Now, 75 years later, it is important we still continue this conversation because we have taken over leadership from our forefathers and our mothers. And today we are joined by one prominent son of Africa, I should say. But before I introduce him, I would like to introduce other student leaders who will be joining us in this conversation. We have Rudi May Hart, Manchester Metropolitan University. Rudi is an art historian from Manchester, based in Liverpool, of Caribbean and white British descent. Her area of study is Caribbean art and art history, both in the Caribbean and internationally. We're also joined by Emma Banks, who is a final year PhD student in English literature at the University of Salford. Emma is part of the organizing committee for PAC 75 and is the postgraduate representative for Northern Postcolonial Network. And finally, the very heavy name, which I can't seem to pronounce right now, Boluwatife Oyesola, my Nigerian sister. She graduated from the University of Bolton with a BA in accountancy. And she was the SU president for 2018 and 2019. And she is currently doing her PhD at the Institute of Management at the University of Bolton. And there's myself. My name is Nana Agyeman Fredua. I'm a proud son of Ghana and of Africa. And I am the postgraduate officer at the Students Union of University of Manchester. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce our main speaker, Lemn Sissay. He is no stranger to those of us who live and study here in Manchester. I am proud to say that he is the Chancellor of my university, the University of Manchester. Lemn Sissay is a poet, a storyteller, playwright, artist, performer, and broadcaster. He has read on stage throughout the world, from the Library of Congress in the United States to the University of Addis Ababa, from Singapore to Sri Lanka, from Bangalore to Dubai, from Bali to Greenland, and the Wigan Library. He must have a lot of travel miles. His memoir, My Name is Why, is published by Canongate. He was the first poet commissioned to write for the London Olympics and wrote the official poem for the FA Cup. He was awarded an MBE for services to literature by the Queen of England, along with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Margaret Atwood. He won the Pen Pinter Prize in 2019. He is an honorary doctor from the Universities of Huddersfield, Manchester, Kent, and Brunei. He is doctor, that is 4 doctors, right? Lemn Sissay. And here's the interesting bit. Lemn himself did not go to university. Now, how's that for defying the norm? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on, but time will not allow us. Please, with some clapping emojis, let us welcome our main speaker, the man of the moment, Lemn Sissay.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you. Air mail to a dictionary. Black is the shawl of the night, secure in sharp and paranoid light. Black is the pupil of the eye, putting colour in the sea, skin, the earth and sky. Black is the oil of the engine on which your whole world's depending. Black is light years of space, holding on its little finger this human race. Black is the colour of ink, giving work to the miners. Black is the colour of ink that makes the history books we print. Black is the army, wars in the night, who put on the black to hide the white. Yes, a blacker on a blacker is a blacker, is a blacker, is a strong as Ashafalter and Tamaka is a blacker, is the pupil of the eye, putting colour in your sea, skin, your earth and sky. Black is the oil of the engine on which your whole world's depending. I've got to stop there because I forgot the rest of the poem. It ends, black is a word that I love to see. Yes, a black is that. Yes, black is me. There's like quite a few things that I've learned about the colour black in my life. It began with all negatives. I didn't meet a person of colour myself until I was around 12 years of age. I didn't know a person of colour until I was 16 or 17 years of age. I grew up in the villages of Lancashire. Amongst most white people in this country, you grow up in the majority. Now, I need to say something here about the colour white and the colour black. People who are in the majority do not call themselves, as a rule, by their colour. Which is why a white person, not all white people, but some, feel quite discombobulated or sort of discomforted when they hear the term white. In exactly the same way that if you are in Ethiopia, where my family is from, if you call somebody black, they'll say, no, I'm Ethiopian. If Nana in Ghana, you won't call yourself black. Your family won't all say, hey, we're all black folks together today, celebrating Black History Month. Not in Africa. In Africa, Black History Month is every day. People don't call themselves black when they're in the majority. They call themselves Ethiopian, or even somebody from Tigray, or somebody from the Amhara tribe, etc., etc. It's really important, though, that we see this and understand it, especially us who have traveled from one to the other on a regular basis. In other words, most people who have come from the African continent in their own families do not call themselves by the color of their skin, because it's reductive when you're in the majority, which is why I'm sure, because I've grown up with them, white folks, as a rule, will feel quite also reduced by being called white folks. However, when they go to Africa, to Ethiopia or to Ghana or to the Gambia or to Senegal or to all of these incredible places, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a white guy. They will relate to themselves as a color because they're in the minority. I'm not dumbing this down. I'm just asking for a real dialogue. Africa is not Black America, and it's not Black British. It is a continent, proud and independent, that has been ravished by Europe and by Europeans. And we're only in the end of colonialism right now. I don't think it's ended. Its echo it's all over Africa. The fact that, you know, all of the natural resources of Africa somehow make Africa poorer than Europe is testament to the fact that we are still in the tremor from the explosion of colonialism. And isn't colonialism such a kind of a tidy word, isn't it? To tidy up what was pillaging, rape, theft, primitive behaviors from Europe. And yet we are the ones in Africa who are, and I say Africa, I know it's a continent, who are supposed to somehow climb our way back from our primitive natures. It's all the wrong way around. We have all of the resources that the rest of the world needs, and yet are in the poorest condition. And that poorest condition is a direct result of colonialism. And just because you're alive, just because you're 53, 64, 24, you feel like you may feel that, well, colonialism happened a long time ago. It didn't. It wasn't a long time ago in historical terms, which is why there are arguments about a statue in Bristol. It's a second away. In real terms, it's just around the corner. Your lifespan may feel like it's the whole world. It isn't. What's happened in Bristol with the taking down of the statue and with Black Lives Matter bringing up issues that we did not know about is because it was just around the corner that it happened, and is because we have suffered in Europe and in England a deliberate educational process to pretend it didn't happen, to sanitize what happened in colonialism, which was rape, pillage, theft, and primitive behaviors. And then we come back here and we teach ourselves in our schools and in education, at every level, about how backward the place was that we went to get all of the resources that we need to be the society that we are today. It's, and, you know, people have said about Trump, you know, one of the things that the Republicans fear the most is that the Black Americans will do to them what they did to the Black Americans. But the fact is that once you've seen how inhuman slavery and the stealing of resources from the mouths of people is, once you've experienced that, you would not do it again. I'm just, so I'm fully aware that there are stories which we are not aware of, that each time a person who is not of colour experiences the fact that, for example, behind me, because you've been uneducated, behind me is a picture just there of a prince from Ethiopia. His name is Prince Alamayehu, and he's buried in Windsor Castle. Now, where my family are from, and there's a reason that you don't know about that. There's a reason that we've not been taught about him and what happened to him and why it happened and how it happened. Because we have been written out of history. And all of this Black Lives Matter, it's exactly the same as the Pan African Congress 75 years ago. Exactly the same. It's a group of people saying, you have not seen us. You have written us out. And you are responsible for a lot of the conditions that we find ourselves in now, directly responsible. And we need you to hear our stories. Essentially, that's what independence is, isn't it? It's the ability to be able to tell your own story at ease. That's all that happened with Black Lives Matter at the most important time in our history, in any of our lives. Black Lives Matter becomes the most important story. I'm talking about the pandemic. It's not just a coincidence that that has happened. that when the entire world goes into lockdown, the one story that raises its head above the dark mire of our pandemic is Black Lives Matter. It's unquestionable, the importance of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this discussion now. And a true example of Black Lives Matter is the Pan African Congress, a meeting that happened in Manchester and in Paris and in the other places, which I'm not sure whether this is the case or not, but in the country of my parents, which is Ethiopia, there is the Organization of Africa Unity, which I think, and I'd love somebody to just fact check this, it was set up in 1963. It had to be, and Nkrumah was there, and all of the heads of state were there, and it's the African Union, the Organization of Africa Unity is there now after being set up then, and it was to sort of replicate the United Nations, but from an African perspective and from a post-colonial perspective, that we needed to be together to compare notes, to work our way out of the legal, contractual doublespeak of colonialism, which means that that boy's parents' clothes are in the British Museum. It's all linked. It's all linked. They did a massive number on us. This is like somebody coming into your house, stealing everything that's there, along with actual people, taking it to their own house, and then coming back to you and saying, okay, all right, you're free. You can have your house. We won't trouble you again, I promise. And then going back to their own house to sell all of the goods so that they can buy a bigger house. And years down the line, they can say, no, look, it happened, but it was a long time ago and it doesn't matter anymore. Meanwhile, they live on a massive estate, which they got from selling the goods that they stole from your house. You know that. Every second of you living in that house, you know that. And the more children they have in the estate who benefit educationally, financially, from what they stole from your house, the further away those children are from believing you when you say to them, you stole from my grandfather. And they're like, no, I was just born. This is where I was born. How dare you say I stole from your grandfather? I didn't. And if my parents did, I didn't know about it, so it's not my fault. Meanwhile, they live with the advantages that what they've stolen from you has given them. Whew, sounds like a lot, isn't it? It's like, well, we have to go back over our generations and go, no, this is when it happened. Look, this is how you spent it. These are the banks that you built based on it. This is the profit that you've made from it. These are the people. And look how you talk about us in your mansion, in your big house. You talk about us as if we're the bad house down the street, as if we're a threat. Of course we're a threat to you, because inside your DNA, there is a sense of guilt that you cannot let go of. Well, inside our DNA, there is a sense of loss that we cannot let go of. And this is as prevalent in the person, in the black kid who gets stopped on the street by the police, the young kid who's 25, who's angry and who can't articulate. It's just as much in that moment as it is in the banks that have benefited, as it is in the educational system that looks back at Ethiopia, at Africa, as if it is a primitive backwater. All of these words, these terms that were used in the Royal Society when they went around the world at the height of enlightenment, owning their discoveries. What am I saying? I'm saying all of these words were in some way to make us out to be less, because that could justify what happened. All of that is then. And how does that affect now? The fact that you don't know about that prince of Ethiopia, his name is Alemayehu, and how he was stolen, and how Lord Robert Napier is called Lord Robert Napier of Magdala, which is the battle that happened in Ethiopia when the British went to Ethiopia in the late 1800s and stole, pillaged the king's crown, clothes, manuscripts, religious manuscripts, and then brought them back here and spread them around the universities, the museums, and sold them as if they were not connected to what was a massacre. Now, if you want to look at whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, that battle, whether it was morally right for it to happen, why steal a child? All of the clues as to whether this is wrong, whether what happened was just plain wrong. There's no right about it. There was no right about the colonialism of India. No, there is no road that the British built that can justify the murder and the separation and the manipulation of what happened in India. Oh, of course we're not aware of it. Of course we're not in England aware of it. It happened over there. It was primarily, it was us, we did it, but of course we're not aware of it. The brainwashing began straight away as it was happening here. Genocide is what happened, how long ago? 60 years ago? 65 years ago, since the partition in India? It's an echo away. So the whole idea that this idea of the past being past is not true. And that's why Black Lives Matter, and that's why this anniversary of the Pan African Congress matters. And that's why we do this thing that we do. I'm often told, you know, that people don't agree with what is it called? Positive discrimination. Like, as soon as we think of a good idea, it gets slapped down. To the point that we think it's a bad idea. People will say to us, well, you can't have positive discrimination. I mean, it's all about attainment. You have to attain. Who said you didn't have to attain in positive discrimination? I'll tell you this, positive discrimination has been working for years. It's just not for people of my color. Are you telling me that there were no intelligent women before, I don't know, 1850? Because the society was run by men? No, that was positive discrimination. Positive discrimination has been working so well that the people who have been positively discriminated towards, the people who've had the advantage of positive discrimination, are the first ones to say, oh no, we can't have positive discrimination. It needs to be based on merit. Of course it needs to be based on merit. Who said it didn't? We're slightly adjusting the criteria of merit because merit was always had adjusted criteria, and it worked for one kind of person. And if you want to know who that kind of person is, walk around the courts of England, walk around the universities of England, walk around the institutions of England, walk around the Royal Society, and look at who were the heads of them. No, positive discrimination has been working very, very well. I know that's tricky. I know that some of you are thinking, I can't even hear the term positive discrimination without thinking of it as a negative thing. Of course you can't. They did a number on you. I'm so proud to be Chancellor of the University of Manchester. I mean, it is an incredible place. And Manchester Met and Salford University. I'm so proud to be part of a team of people, the President's Office, who have such a wide variety of people who attend the university from around the world and who teach at the university from around the world. I'm so proud that David Olusoga is one of our lecturers. I'm so proud that Jackie Kay is the Chancellor of the University of Salford. I am so proud that Gary Young is a lecturer at the University of Manchester. I mean, does it get better? Oh gosh, and there's my friend, and I'm so proud that the University of Manchester was the first university to employ a professor, a black professor, and that we have a building named after him. I'm so proud that we are led by Dame Nancy Rothwell, by a scientist, by a woman, and by a believer in diversity. And I'm so lucky to be in a university. By the way, if ever you want to feel a little bit insecure about your own knowledge, then become the Chancellor of a university, because you're surrounded by such incredible minds. I am the first Ethiopian British Chancellor of a university in British history, and I am proud of that. And I'm proud that I was voted as a Chancellor. All I know is that what I feel is that I could always do better. I'm part of a university where we are all trying our best under great pressure at the moment, actually. And I think this event happening in the middle of the pandemic and amongst a lot of the stresses that we are all under is testament to the University of Manchester and Manchester Met. We work together, we live together, and we study together, essentially. I need to say this about the Pan African Congress anniversary, that we that my experience in Manchester and my learning about race and about who I am actually as a black man. By the way, I am a black man. I'm also a human being. I'm a collection of molecules. I am a Ethiopian. I'm a northerner. I live around the world. I travel the world. I'm all of those things and then some. And I don't see my color. I look outwards. But my color is, yeah. Again, what I want to say is that the Caribbean community, and I want to say this especially to my African brothers and sisters, especially if you've only been in Manchester over the past 15 years, is that the groundwork for my knowledge about Africa and about myself as a black person came from Caribbeans. There was a time when the main black community in Manchester was a Caribbean community with very few Africans. And it is, the Caribbean community has actually laid the ground for a lot of the black consciousness in Manchester. And over the past 15 years, there has been an influx, and this is connected to the government's immigration policies. Just for the students, the government's immigration policy changed and stopped people living in London. So they spread out to the rest of the country, which is why you find you have Ethiopian communities in Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield. You know, there was a shift change around 15, 16 years ago, just when I left Manchester, actually. And the Somalian community as well came to Manchester. And the Caribbean community became less visible. And that's only natural. But I want you to know how important the Caribbean community has been for fighting for all kinds of rights for Black people previous to 16 years ago. That leads you through the 1980s riots, the films that Steve McQueen will be putting up soon, Mangrove, and there's two other films that Steve McQueen, Sir Steve McQueen, is putting forward, are about the Caribbean community and how they fought for the rights of all Black people. The reason I say that to you is a lot of the community centres in Moss Side and in Hume were established by the Caribbean community. And the reason I say that to you is because the Pan African Congress, as I saw, was spearheaded by or with members of the Caribbean community. And in fact, there is one person who came to the Pan African Congress in Manchester called Ras T. McConnell. Now, when I saw that name, I thought, an Ethiopian, because that's an Ethiopian name. And I was about to say, I'm really pleased to have found that there was an Ethiopian within the Pan African Congress in Manchester in '75. There may well have been, but it wasn't Ras T. McConnell, because he was a Caribbean guy from Guyana who had changed his name to an Ethiopian name, which is one of the things that you may know that the diaspora do. That is to change their names. In America, I just want to share this with you. The reason that Malcolm X, you see, I grew up in a village in Lancashire, okay? And all of the white people from that village would come to the city later, or a percentage would, same people who were my age, and they would become police officers, they would go to university, and they would become doctors. And when people asked them, well, do you have anything about race? Is there any racism in you? They would say no. No, there's no racism in me because I didn't grow up with any black people around me. I just want to share with you, if you didn't grow up with any black people around you, there's a strong possibility that you have racism that you weren't even aware of until you met black people. Let me tell you this also, that if you are from Ethiopia and you're from the Amhara tribe and you only ever grew up with Amhara people, there is a strong possibility that you are racist towards Eritreans or to people from Tigray. Same if you were always brought up in Ghana regarding, I don't know whether the equivalent country is with Ghana, but with Nigeria, it may be Cameroon. In Senegal, it may be the Gambia. You know, you pick up things in your family that you did not know that you were carrying until you meet somebody from Cameroon and you think, oh, well, you people are obviously, the moment you've said you people, boom, you're out. You're in the realms of being a racist. Okay, so this racism thing, firstly, it is not universal to black and white. Okay, I know some of you are going to be thinking, no, this is not true, Lemn. My race politics tells me that racism can only be from white people to black people. Some of you believe that, some of you may not. What I'm saying is that racism is all over the world. There's one thing I've learned about racism since I've traveled around the world, it's that it's in every country. It's from people from Pakistan to people in Kashmir. It's from people in India to people in Bengali, but in Bengal, by the way, Bangladesh, and back again. Both of them can hold, they're the same traits. It's the you people thing. It's a, yeah, but don't you, and it's like, you're all the good looking tribe. You're all the bad looking tribe. You're all the this, you're all the that. And as soon as somebody says to you, I don't care what tribe you're from, you know that they do. That's another story. But what I'm trying to share with you is that I was from those villages and I saw the prejudice that was there. And I saw those people enter their professional lives only to go into denial about it. And I don't believe this is unique to black and white. You know, racism is all over the world. And if we don't accept that, we can't fight it because it's in our own houses. It's from, oh my gosh, the trouble between the African community, whatever that is, by the way, and because I don't know what it is, because I know Ethiopians and they're nothing like Ghanaians. And I know Ghanaians are nothing like people from Senegal. They're as different from French people to German people. I love seeing our similarities, but I love also appreciating our differences. And I love seeing that racism, as far as I can see it, is a brilliant divining rod. It's a brilliant way of seeing a person's humanity, regardless of other subjects. A person being defensive when another person says, I don't want to be defined in such a way. That defensiveness is where the problem is. And that's why Black Lives Matter happened. It was people saying, I don't care about your defensiveness anymore. I need you to hear this. Regardless of whether you're going to talk to me or not, I'm going to march along the street. I'm going to pull down a statue. By the way, folks, all the statues will be gone. I mean, that's one thing that I can guarantee to you, all the statues will be gone. It's just a matter of time. And it's no big deal. I mean, our city centres have been absolutely transformed. Nobody's been marching about it. Oh, you've taken down that wall. You know, there will be trouble. You know, people will feel irritated and discomforted by the change somewhat. But that John Lewis gets built on all kinds of shizzle. The statues will go. That's how life is. Stuff happens. Get over it. But what we're doing in this country in many ways is having to unpick some of the mess, really. That's what we're doing. And we're doing it for everybody. We're not just doing it for people of colour. We're doing it for the betterment of everybody, which is kind of fun. Do I sound like an old guy ranting now? Possibly.
We have so many questions pouring out, and no, you don't sound like an old guy pouring out.
I'm actually good with that, actually.
Sorry?
I said I'm good with that. I feel happier than I've ever been in life, but yeah.
Yeah, if you will be able to wrap up, we can take some questions that are coming in, because I'm sure with all the things that you're saying, some people want to fight you, and
I know.
so
I mean, this is what you should have up by an open talk. I want to say this though.
Right.
I will say that I've spent my life with people who've said that they're colorblind, and I just want to share with you that that they only say that when they see color, right? Which gives it away straight away. So essentially, whenever somebody says they're colorblind, they're lying. Okay, that's the first thing. The first thing they saw was color, and then they said they were colorblind. Do you know what it's like being of color and hearing somebody say that? You suddenly become transparent, invisible. I mean, I don't go up to people who've got no legs and say to them, I don't see legs in my everyday life. I don't see, mentally I'm a paraplegic. You don't do that. The point is that you're not colorblind. You do see color, and that's okay. I have people telling me all the time, you're not black, you're a human being. Now, that is like saying to, if I was to say, if you're a woman and I walked in a room and you were the only woman there and I said to you, I don't see you as a woman, I see you as a human being. All you would know is that the only thing they saw was that you were a woman, right? Right. And by the way, because I say I'm a black man, it doesn't mean to say that I'm any less of a human being. I see myself as a human being and a black man and a northerner and a London living person and somebody who travels the world. And like I said at the beginning of this, I don't see me anyway. I'm always looking out. I reserve the right to define myself in a million different ways, and to be seen in a million different ways and heard in a million different ways, and to speak on a million different subjects. And I don't see race as limiting. I see it as liberating.
Shall we take questions now, then?
No, no questions. Just giving an unscripted talk, and I feel like, yeah, please let's.
Okay. Let's go. Thank you very much, Lem. From a powerful poem to deep cutting statements. I'm sure this conversation may even continue outside of this session, but we have questions and answers pouring in. And just to say that we may not be able to cover all the questions, but we'll try as much as possible. We will start with a few of the questions that have been asked in the Q&A, and I will allow our student panelists to also jump in with their reflections on what Lemn has said, if that's okay. So
may I just say one more thing? And okay. I think that the Black Lives Matter movement has benefited, in particular, from the Me Too movement.
Is that how you want to end it?
Yeah, there's been a raising of consciousness and a raising of awareness, and I don't think they've happened in isolation.
Right. Okay. I'll leave that for our audience to cut deep into that. We have a question from Ayla, who says, Black is a color Black people in Britain call themselves, but do we need to use our own languages or African meanings to describe ourselves?
We can have both, okay? If you want to call yourself Black, then call yourself Black. I don't actually mind what anybody calls themselves. What I'm concerned with is how we respect a person's right to be able to name themselves in any way they want. Often terms are used when funding is introduced. So we use BAME now, don't we, quite a lot. It's no coincidence that the government will have given money to a Black and minority ethnic, or whatever it means, groups. So the group gets the money and then says, right, I'm now a BAME. The same thing happened with ethnic minority. That was a term that was used a few years ago. And it was also connected to funding. So I wonder whether we should always use the language where the language that power asks us to use, the people in power ask us to use. But
right.
Anyway,
we have a question.
More than one is my answer to that.
Sorry, can you please repeat that again?
Yes, you can have more than one. You can say, yeah, I'm a Black man to one person. You can say I'm an Amharic Ethiopian second generation diaspora. I mean, we haven't discussed the nature of diaspora, because I think that really that's a fascinating subject, how we relate to our story in Africa, which is fascinating. Anyway, yes.
Anyway, we have a question from Velma who says, how does Africa reclaim its natural resources in the time of COVID?
I mean, how does Africa reclaim its natural resources in time of COVID? That's a question that I don't feel equipped, or I don't feel like I have the qualifications to give you the informed answer that question deserves. There is a brilliant TED talk by a woman, I think a Nigerian woman who works in finance, where she lays it out quite simply as to how the resources were taken and what is needed for them to be regained. But I would say to you that the beginning of regaining the resources from the continent began with the Pan African Congress. There's a great story, Nana, about that I heard about when the colonialists left Ghana. That they immediately sold back a contract to build silos, giant brick silos to hold cocoa shells. Yeah. Do you know about this?
Yeah.
And the silos were so hot that the cocoa shells exploded. Did you hear the story?
I think Kwame, General Secretary of the University of Manchester Students Union, will be the best person to speak to about this. He does. I just know a bit about the story, but yeah.
I am, of course, assuming that because you're from Ghana, you will know everything about the whole history of Ghana. But the thing is that we've been sold bad ideas. Please carry on.
Yeah, let me carry on. A question from Elizabeth Cameron. Then from there, we'll move on to our student panelists, who I'm sure are boiling with a lot of questions. Elizabeth is asking, what would you comment to the fact that we are reframed as crazy activists, angry Black female, too far lefties when we try to challenge racism in our organizations, which in the main all have an aspect of institutional racism in them?
Yeah, we have to be available to each other, so that we can support each other through the emotional strain of feeling unheard. So there will be, structural. I'm trying to think of my friend, and I can't remember her name. She works in law at the University of Manchester, black woman, Beresford, you know her, and her name's gone out of my head. And can somebody put it in chat when you get her name? Dreadlocks, long, Dawn. Her name is Dawn. Second name, it's Sunday. What was the question?
Yes, she's asking, what would you comment to the fact that we are reframed as crazy activists, angry black female, that narrative, too far lefties when we try to challenge racism in our organizations?
Professor Dawn Edge is the name. Thank you, Beresford, for that. Yeah, that crazy black woman thing, I get that a lot. No, that's not true, obviously, I don't get it, but that crazy lefty thing, that's kind of like the lazy go-to. The lazy, crazy go-to. And
what is your reaction?
I've had it all my career.
What is your reaction when you get that?
I just think that we should get as much. I'm so glad you're on here, Dawn Edge. I think that we should garner as much power as we can to alleviate the person who calls us crazy from their own delusions.
Right. I will turn over to our student panelists, Rudi, Bolu, and Emma. I'm not sure who wants to start, but feel free to jump in.
You need to unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself. Bolu, you want to start?
You threw me on the bus there. I usually go last, just see what everybody's got to say, and then. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, for your insights. I kind of disagree on something, but on I'll say 99%, I was nodding my head and smiling after time. And I think there was a point I was upset. I was like, it's hot here. It's very hot. Because you were just eating, the nail on the head, and you're just spewing facts and the truths that sometimes we do not want to bring ourselves to see or to accept. And I feel like the colonialism not being too long ago is the biggest thing. I say it all the time. Nigerians celebrated our 60th independence on the 1st of October. And I said to
16 years.
Yes, and I said to someone like, my grandma is hale and healthy and she's alive, and my grandparents are alive. I'm saying my grandma is older than Nigeria. Let that sink in. And that's not even talking about Nigerians' democracy.
Wow.
That's talking about our independence. And people like to make it like it was years ago. It's not. I can still feel it when my passport is being stamped. I can still see the effects of what's happened where I'm from. Yeah. And it's everywhere, and it's embedded in the system. I feel like 400 years to come, our children's children will still be asking why. What happened? How can we change this? And I just have I don't know. I don't think I have a question. Honestly, because I just feel like, I don't know, me not even knowing about that prince is something. I was saying on the other panel that I was in that I feel sorry for the Black Brits born. I don't know how to call them, but because I'm Nigeria and we are told our history, we are told about, Lord Lugard and, every other thing, but they don't know when we come here, we feel like, oof, you guys don't know anything, do you? You don't know, you don't know anything. You don't know what's happened.
Yeah.
And you know, when the first time I ever had to take a bus that says Black African or ethnic something, I'm like, why? Because I'm not from a place where I've ever had to take that. I was Igbo, Yoruba, or Hausa, and we have over 200 tribes in Nigeria. So I feel like
if I can just ask you to keep your comment short,
yes,
we have a few minutes more.
If I was to ask a question, I would just want to say, how can we then encourage difficult conversations with these people and their generations? Because they say, oh, well, it's not I'm not the one that committed all these atrocities against you. It was my forefathers. I don't know about it, but you're still enjoying the benefits, like you said, the advantages in terms of finance, education, and every other thing. Like your generations to come already have something in place for them that sets them apart from my own generation.
Right.
100 miles. How can we encourage this conversation with them for them not to be like, well, I don't see color, because if you don't see color, then you don't see me. That would be my question.
I think that it's already happening. I think that's what Black Lives Matter is about, and I think that's what this is about. And it's about the raising of consciousness, I guess, and allowing people to hear stories that they otherwise wouldn't have heard. You know, the sad thing about this is that I think that most people they've been given bad information. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like it's not their fault because they didn't know. They didn't know. And then we say, you've got to know. And I think things are getting, intense. That's why people pulled down the statues. They were asking for years and years and years for that statue taken down. And then they just took it down. So maybe, action is what's going to make the change. And I think it is happening because this has got to have been the most widely publicized Black History Month that I've experienced in my life. So we are going we're going in the right direction. Next question, thank you.
Yes, reflections from Rudi, then Emma.
Go ahead, Rudi.
Yeah, I was basically nodding along, against pretty much everything. I think as well what you're saying about Caribbeans and the community in Manchester and Liverpool, I see so much of what, because I'm of a Caribbean background, of what people have done, and the idea of the fact that it's not and even I've traveled and I've seen what other Caribbeans have done throughout Europe, setting up communities and things like that. And it's this idea, it comes in waves and nothing is ever new. And I've talked to friends of all different backgrounds about this who are not white. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to, in my own practice, is say non-white, because we aren't white and white needs to be there. There needs to be an acknowledgement of rather than saying of color, well, white, that skin tone is still a color. It still needs to be at the forefront, and just stuff that you're saying. And I think also about how in extremely white areas you can feel so isolated. I grew up in a very, very white area. I think I was one of 3 other non-white people in school throughout the whole of it. And this idea of, you don't understand what microaggressions are until you're until you've left, and that idea of you don't really know what's happening until later on, and you look back and you're like, I shouldn't have let that slide. But there's no one to pick up on those things. There's no one to stand in there, because like you said, those people from the countryside, they come, they just say they don't see color. They've never had to experience it. They've never had to have that training around children. And even in the education system, my cousin is learning about the US. She said, why is the US a white country? She was like, why do the Black people in the US, they're doing about Jim Crow South, but no one has explained to her that they were forced onto ships. And that to me is and I mean, there's so many things that you could go on and on about, but I feel for me, it's really about community, grassroots, and things like that. That's what really interests me the most. So my question is, as non-white people, we often let oppressive hierarchical systems win by continuing them from the form of fighting amongst ourselves, or not showing solidarity.
Yeah.
And I feel like amongst each other, and I feel like Riz Ahmed, Guz Khan and Hassan Minhaj have a really interesting conversation about how people of South Asian origin can show solidarity, but also how things affect them and how they're perceived, whether that be in the US or when they go back to their respective home countries or the countries of their parents' origin, or here in the UK. And like my question therefore is then, how do we non-white people continue to decolonize amongst ourselves rather than within our silos?
I mean, you know, the more I learn about the effects of race, the more I think that we've been traumatized. And often, I mean, I have, but I see this in many of us. And if it's not, you know, even if it's generational, even if it was our parents or our parents' parents even, and I sometimes wonder if this gets handed down inside of us, and that, you know, sometimes when unity doesn't happen, it's because broken people are breaking each other, you know, when actually we should be uniting as best as we can. I wish there was like a spiritual side to this story, and there is, but you know, I think actually, because one of the ways of the important uses of colonialism was to use spiritual practices to infiltrate and to break down community. What I'm trying to say is that our well-being is really important. And I find that, you know, whenever we hurt each other, especially within our groups, it is to do with behavior which is like the behavior of trauma. I'm hurt, therefore I hurt you. That sounds quite airy-fairy, but I do wish we spoke about our well-being more inside our Black and minority ethnic groups. Like that was a really, because that's one of the, that gives us the ability to fight and stay supple and stay well. I'm not defined by what I'm against, Rudi. I'm defined by who I am. I can't be defined by what I'm against.
Yeah, for sure. I think I was on the talk with it was Cheryl McGowan, I think I said, hope I said her name right, the other day, and she was talking about trying to have what they called like the Sunday schools for education the other day, and bringing some form of spirituality to the Northwest, like having those kind of things. And that to me seemed like what you're saying is such an important part.
I think it is, because this is hard work, you know. Thank you. Thanks, Rudi.
Yes, Emma, do you want to jump in?
Emma.
Yeah.
Hi, Lemn. Thank you so much for speaking today. I want to pick up on something you said about we need to speak about diaspora. And that question is that one of the unjust criticisms of the Black Lives Matters movement here in Britain is that it's maybe responding to events happening in America. And I think that I wondered if we could, what you think of the concept of Pan Africanism and how that can help us in the UK respond to these global movements of racial equality.
This has brought me back to something that I was speaking about before, which I didn't finish. And it's that in America, you have Malcolm X, you have Jay-Z, Prince, and you have all of these people, lots of people. Tupac Shakur I was talking about names. The reason that Black Americans often will use X, Z, or have a one-letter second name, or have a change of name altogether, is because every Black person born in America comes from, other than the African diaspora, the more recent African, comes from slavery, like everyone. Every single one. And it's exactly the same in the Caribbean. But I'll talk about America. So because they came from slavery, they were given the second name of their slave master. So I can, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of, Michael Jackson is a good example. Jackson is not an African-American name, an African name. Jackson will be the name of the slave owner who owned that family. Right, Jackson's a British name or a Scottish name. Sorry, I was just, that kind of sort of linked with something that I was saying earlier on regarding Black Americans, and so the diaspora. Isn't it funny that, you know, it's right, people will say, you know, God, yeah, but that's them over there, it's not us over here. But it's just not true. The only difference between America and England when it comes down to colonialism, or the big difference, or let's say slavery is the best example, is that slavery happened on American soil. It was the making of America. The British, the making of modern Britain, has been the money that was made from colonialism, not the people. So the people here didn't see the effects that they'd had on other people, right? Other Black people, or the people from Africa. So basically, we have the same story. It's just that when Black folks come here, they bring the story of slavery with them, colonialism. In America, they were already there. Does that make sense? Possibly it does, possibly it doesn't. I'm trying to make sense of it myself, except for to say, when I can't get a taxi, when I was growing up in Manchester, I couldn't get a taxi if it was late at night. The taxi driver wasn't stopping because I was a Black guy. Well, he would stop and he would say, well, the problem is that a Black guy once ran away. A Black guy once mugged me. Well, lots of white guys do that, but you don't stop them. You know, you stop for them. Exactly the same thing happens in America. Exactly the same thing happens in New York, to the point that, what's his name? He wrote a song called Can I Get a Taxi? Dreadlocks, plays the guitar. Can't remember his name. So the same things are happening there are happening here. They're talking about bringing down statues. We're talking about bringing down statues. They're talking about being treated worse by the police. We're talking about being treated worse by the police. They're talking about not getting the educational opportunities. We're talking about not getting the educational opportunities. We know there's a link. The reason we know there's a link is because we're the ones that were traveling from one part of the world to another on the behest of a country that thought that people could be enslaved and used as a product. And they know that. It's only an echo away. As was said a minute ago, it's 60 years since Nigeria became independent. It's 60 years since the partition in India. So in many ways, we are educating the wider community as to the vastness of slavery and of colonialism.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Yes.
So, a white person, you know, I was expecting that. Emma, that was a joke. I couldn't resist it. It was out there. It was on the horizon, and I took it. Thanks for asking a great question.
Yeah. So Lemn, Kwame Nkrumah, who's one of the founding fathers of Pan Africanism, and one of the underlying principles, or should I say, one of the underlying things that he was trying to push when it came to Pan Africanism was one Africa. That is one military, one currency, and now we have.
Happen, man.
Sorry.
It's a great Pan-Africanist idea, but it's not going to happen.
Wait, allow me to ask my question. So I was gonna say, like, what I mean, we've started with the African Free Trade Area, which is bringing together one Africa, over 1 billion in terms of market size.
Yeah.
What do you think that if that is to happen, what do you think would be the impact? Do you think that is the direction in which we need to go, so that the world can give Africa the respect it deserves at the negotiation table?
I think it's a great idea, and I said it's not going to happen like a joke, and I shouldn't have said that. And I shouldn't have said the previous joke as well, because I apologise for both of them. Yeah, I think there's a lot to do before, it's a great Pan-Africanist idea, actually, to have one currency. We can see how well that's going with the euro, can't we? I mean, it would be a wonderful thing if there was one currency across Africa and that each administration was united by that. But I've got a feeling that there's a lot more other work to do before we can get to that. But yeah, it's a good idea.
What sort of work would you say? Professor Ola Uduka just said ECOWAS has been quite successful. So maybe that has been a good springboard to kind of, maybe it's time that, ECOWAS has been successful, SADC has been successful. Maybe
Sorry, what did you
say? ECOWAS has been successessful.
The Economic Commission.
The Economic Community of West African States.
West African states.
Okay.
Yeah, it has been successful. We have that of SADC too, which is in the Southern African zone. So is it time, what do you think? You said there are things that need to be done before that happens. What would you say are some of those things?
No, I've got to say this. When it comes to economics, I'm out of my league. A very famous speaker once said to me, never talk about what you don't know about. And I stand by that. And yeah, I'm going to say I can't answer that question.
All right, but we have a question from Dawn Edge, who so she's asking, what do you make of the fact that Sir Arthur Lewis was appointed by University of Manchester as UK's first Black professor, but first Black woman not appointed till 2019? Interestingly, both born in the Caribbean.
And the first Black woman professor will be Dawn Edge herself. So there'll be a building called the Dawn Edge Building happening at some point in the future, I guess. Well, it's great that Arthur Lewis was the first Black professor at a university, and that university was the University of Manchester. It's also great that the first Black woman professor was in 2019. Onwards and upwards is how I see it.
Onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
I hope Dawn is satisfied with that answer.
I'll say to Dawn, and I'll say to you and all of us here, that we are in the growth area. Where we are from is the growth area, and it's a good time to be both Black, but it's also a good time to be African, good time to be Caribbean, but also a good time to be aware of Africans and Caribbeans. That's just as good, because we are in a good place right now in terms of growth.
Right. We have a question from Nuala who's asking, will you stand again to be Chancellor of the University of Manchester?
Well, I stand again to be Chancellor of the University of Manchester. I think that I'm pretty sure I can't do that constitutionally. So I'm looking forward. It's a good question because my chancellorship will be finishing in, oh my gosh, I might never get to be I might never get to do a graduation ceremony again. That breaks my heart. I hope I can. No, I've had a wonderful time at Manchester, and you've been incredible to me, and I hope I've been as best as I can as a ceremonial representative. God, I love the University of Manchester.
Someone is saying, come to MMU.
MMU, no, you've got a perfectly great Chancellor at MMU.
Yeah, so to move on to another question, it says, one of the most poignant outcomes of the 1945 Pan-African Congress, in his opinion, is its long-term positive impact. Whilst the current COVID-19 pandemic and recent Black Lives Matter protests have highlighted and raised awareness of race inequality globally and specifically in the UK. In the absence of structured, considered long-term strategic measures addressing race inequality, however, this threatens to deliver zero long-term benefit.
Yeah.
Here comes the question. What would you suggest to be the strategic interventions necessary to leverage the current momentum behind Black Lives Matter to advance race equality in the long term?
That's really good. I think that there is work that's happening right now which is leading to structural change. And I think that that work has also supported this upsurge of consciousness which became Black Lives Matter. So I believe that there are structural changes that are happening now, that CEOs of companies are feeling answerable to the question, why are there no Black people working here? But we have to continue to shout from the rooftops. The truth is, I say this to Dawn and to anybody, is that I do believe in targets. Like, you want to have more Black people working in your organization, then set a target. Say, right, we're going to have more Black people working in our organization. We're going to have this amount at this point in time. It's not complicated. People say, oh, well, we need to, it can only be based on merit. Of course it can. But the criteria for merit is what we are developing here. The bar isn't being brought down, the bar is being raised. Who are you not seeing? What are your targets? It's as simple as that. Then you wouldn't need any BAME groups, because they'd be able to just look at the targets and say, you know what, you didn't do it. You said you would have 50% of people in your office to be people of colour. They're not there. People are frightened of targets because it means that they have to commit to an idea and they're unsure of the idea. And we have to make them sure.
Right. We have a question from Alga, who's asking, in the context of continuing colonialism and the continuing theft from Africa, in the debt and unfair trade, how can we stop this? That's a word I can't pronounce that. Sorry. How can we stop the continuing colonialism and the continuous theft from Africa? I think that is the...
Continuous what from Africa?
The continuing colonialism and the continuous theft from Africa. How can that stop? How can we stop that?
I think I'm just going to answer this generally, because I can't give you a specific answer, I'm afraid. But we just need more people with the skills to be able to make these things happen. We need more conscious African minds in finance, in banks, in law, especially in law, in fact, to unpick some of the damaging structures which have been set up to belittle us. That's all I've got, I'm afraid.
All right. So Lemn, just to, since you're the man of the moment, I wanted to kind of put you on the spot on a bit, if you don't mind. As Chancellor of the University of Manchester, how have you been able to promote some of these discussions? Do you think, because of your position, you're talking about the lawyers, but as Chancellor, what are some of the things you have done to put the Black voice at the forefront of some of these things we're talking about?
Yesterday, I was in a cab taxi. I'll put it up on my Twitter feed after this talk. And the taxi driver said to me, I've told my children about you. They're all college age at the moment. And the idea and the fact that you're Chancellor of the university, and he was an Ethiopian taxi driver, the idea that he could be proud of there being somebody who looks like him, who's at the head of the university in a ceremonial role as Chancellor, inspires him to tell his children that you can do that too. You can get to the top of your industry, whatever it is that their children are going to go and study in. That cannot be underestimated. Other than to remember, and for some of us who can remember, what it's like when that's not there. To be able to say, I know that hundreds, if not thousands, have said, that's my Chancellor. And that the effect of that on a family, on a teenager, on a student, on a postgrad is incredibly empowering in and of itself. Okay, so I want to take that as value. That has a value. When I first became Chancellor, I wanted to account for everything I did so that it was all on one piece of paper so that people could see. And I was advised that that wasn't necessary. So it never happened. And I want to say to any of you, if you end up being in positions of whatever positions, if you want to record something, write it down on a piece of paper. And that point of record, whether it's a negative or a positive, will become a flood, a waterfall, a massive list. That's another matter altogether. But I think for us, it's really important actually when we're working in places. I would say that I was a very strong influence in getting the scholarship, the international scholarship. Oh gosh, the name's gone. It's a Sunday between Ethiopia and Manchester University. That is that students from Ethiopia would be part of a scholarship program, the Equity and Merit Scholarship Program, which is in about 5 different countries in Africa. I made the link between the University of Manchester and Ethiopia. I knew the British Council there, who I could connect with my friend Joanne, who runs the Equity and Merit Scholarship Scheme. So that's happened. That was a big deal.
Yeah, I know about that, yeah.
Yeah, and there are a couple of other things. The Black Lawyers Matter, which was I don't know where that is at this moment, but it was going to be something. It was going to be a scholarship for a black lawyer in Manchester. A scholarship. Yeah, and then there's the hundreds of hands that I've shaked at graduation. The students.
That also has its impact.
And I've done a few events as well and things.
All right. Just to take our final questions from Glynis. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Forgive me if I'm not. The question is, do you think Africa needs all its people around the world to support it? That is Black Americans, Black Britons, etc.
Yes, I do. But then my parents are from Africa. So, but yeah, of course, it's a wonderful connection to have. It's basically it's 500 quid for a return flight, let's say 550. Okay, which you could say would be a third of the national salary, which works out at about a week and a half's work, average salary, I mean. So it's not actually that far away physically.
Right.
You know, yeah.
I should say that in Ghana, we had the year of return, was it last year, December, which saw so many people from America mostly coming back home. And we had all these celebrities and they visited the slave castles, and you could see that it started a conversation. It was awakening that spirit of Pan Africanism, if I should say, in them.
We have to be careful, I think. It was an Ethiopian, a man called Haile Girma, a filmmaker that inspired Spike Lee to become a filmmaker, and he made a film called he made a film called Sankofa. And Sankofa was about those places, yeah, where in Senegal, actually, I think it was, the film, yeah, those places where the slaves came from Africa to England. But our diaspora has to respect the Africa that it goes to. And quite often we can quite easily treat the Africa that we return to, or even the Caribbean that we return to, as if it should be answerable to our needs as people who've grown up in Britain. And actually, when we return to our respective countries in Africa, we have a responsibility to listen as much as we talk. We've spent so much time in England talking our head, talking our blah. We don't need to do that back in the countries in Africa. We need to listen more and then re-engage. Does that make sense? Because the story of the diaspora back in Africa and in the Caribbean is a very confusing one, actually. It's not as simple as, I have come home. It's not the Lion King story. It's not the Lion King story. It's a story of trauma. And so when a Black American returns to Africa and thinks, where's the McDonald's? Where's the KFC? How come people don't talk? These people are dirty. Da, 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 da. We are the evolved ones. They are the unevolved ones. You know, that is a big issue. We have money, they don't, you know. That's not about the money, that's a mindset. If a farmer has 2 cows, and I know that Africa, you know, my family, Ethiopia is both rural and metropolitan, the city and the country. But if a farmer has 2 cows, he could be richer than somebody here who's earning £100,000 a year. What I'm trying to say is it's all relative. Do you understand? Yeah. It's I saw this documentary on Ethiopia by a filmmaker friend of mine, and I thought, wow, people are going to look at that let's call it a home dwelling. So it was a rural family hut, is what it's called over here, right? So it's a family dwelling, and I could see that those people were actually loaded. But I could also see that a viewer over here wouldn't see that. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Lemn.
Yeah.
I think we want to wrap up now. It's been an interesting, insightful, revealing afternoon. And Professor Ola Oduku has just said something that's so powerful. She says, thank you so much for this discussion, Lemn. You've had us eating from the palm of your hands. Talk about an African idiom. You've had us eating from the palm of your hand. So thank you very much. And
don't forget to watch them.
and absolutely, we want to say thank you to those who made the event possible. The University of Manchester, the BAME Staff Network Group, Manchester Metropolitan University, University of Salford, University of Bolton, all the student reps, Rudi, Bolu, Emma.
Can I just say something? I just wanted to say we should all go there and rewrite our histories. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Lemn.
Thank you, Lemn.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind.
Thank you.
We wanted to stay. One more.
Ask them for an extension.
One more term.
Seems like we're starting a revolution now.
Yeah, or come to Liverpool. Liverpool needs some change. The University of Liverpool.
It's funny you should say this, because I actually, if I do, and I will be leaving in a couple of years, I think, or 18 months or something, I would love to be a chancellor somewhere. So yeah, I will just put that out there.
Right.
Hint, hint. Okay, finally.
We'll start the campaigns.
Wow.
Yes. And finally, in the spirit of Pan Africanism and Ubuntu, I'd just like to, entreat all of us to stand in solidarity with the Nigerian youth who are currently protesting against police brutality. It is a serious issue that is going on in Nigeria, and a divided Nigeria is a divided Africa. So let us all stand behind them. If you cannot protest, you can protest on Twitter, retweet, repost, share it on your Facebook, and let the world know what is going on. That's what we can do in our own little corner.
Thank Nana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. Great sharing. Thank you.
Could people find that on Twitter, Nana?
It's called #NSAS.
NSAS.
It's everywhere.
Nana, could you put it into the chat box now so we can just...
Okay.
Yeah, please do. And also, can can people take a photograph of this screen and put it up on Twitter and hashtag, put @Lemn Sissay in there, please? Okay, because I want a memory of this. You know?
So do we.
Yeah.
It's all being archived though, Lemn. We're really, really grateful. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're a true elder.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate being asked to speak as well. But yeah, take a shot and then put it on thingy @Lemn Sissay, and that would be ace.
That
Great.
would be great.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you.
and let's continue the fight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.